So I am unfortunately not going to be able to throw in any commentary summing up any thoughts I have about this because I literally don't think that this could make sense on a first watch. So what do you think?
I liked it. I had fun.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get off then.
Crank is what would happen if you managed to completely orchestrate a weekend meth bender and follow your own script to a T. It's the illogical conclusion of the action genre as a whole. It's the definition of blue balls, but baby, it hurts so good. It's easily one of the smartest and most well-crafted turn-your-brain-off experiences I've ever seen. It manages to tell its story in a way so deliberate and laden with subtext that it completely flips the action on its head, but only if you think about it too much. In one moment, a blood-soaked shootout, in the next, an intelligent deconstruction of the macho man protagonist, and in the next, the dizziest display of titillation you'll ever see in your life. That is Crank. As per usual, the synopsis. Chef Chelios is a hitman for Don Carlos, and he just took a job that cost him his life. In order to cover his own ass, Don Carlos preemptively ordered the assassination of Chelios following his assassination of Don Kim, a triad leader that had been encroaching on Don Carlos's turf. Ricky Verona and his brother have just injected Chelios with a synthetic cocktail of Asian origin that is slowly sapping his body of adrenaline. Chelios doesn't have much time left, but lucky for him, he can extend the end of his life by manually producing more adrenaline. But what does that mean? It means he spends the whole day chasing thrills while also chasing down the Verona brothers. As their rivalry escalates, Chelios is eventually forced to reveal the nature of his life to his girlfriend, Eve. She follows him for a while after, but eventually, Chelios manages to get an appointment with a mafia doctor, and the two of them cobble together a scheme to get Verona and Carlos in one place for Chelios to execute. Plot twist, Don Kim lives! Him and the triads help Chelios execute his targets, and by the end of the encounter, Chelios is left in a freefall. He uses the time during the fall to call Eve and clear the air, and then the high is finally over. So this is very unlike all of the movies I've talked about on this channel. Rest assured, I'm not going to try to delve into the subtle nuances and complexities of whatever political view I think Chelios is closest to aligning with. If I tried to derive any complex message from this film, I'd still be writing this script by this time next year. Instead, I just want to talk about how expertly constructed this film is, and how it manages to tell a coherent story with a solid underlying narrative, all without breaking a sweat. Also, I'm going to be using audio from the super duper awesome TV cut of the movie, which is included on my DVD along with a commentary track. If I played the raw audio, the video might genuinely get flagged as age restricted. Have this clip as an example of why that might be.
A necklace. You guys really are fairies.
You motherfreaker. You freaking motherfreaker! My grandfather gave that medallion to my father and then he... Frick!
Yeah, the whole movie's like that. Anyway, also, a lot of sex in this movie, a lot of violence, a lot of bad things. So watch at your own discretion. Anyway, on to the main event. The first ingredient to this concoction is the pacing. Every action film is well acquainted with the word. You'll remember the best ones as a highlights reel that feel like they blew by in seconds, and the worst as momentary breaks from dialogue-filled slop. Crank sits firmly in the former category, and it's all thanks to its framing device. Chelios cannot afford to slow down or he risks dying. It's that simple. That isn't to say he never slows down, quite the opposite. It makes the moments where he does slow down feel all the more impactful. Anytime he's not actively raising Kane or his own heart rate, you know he's down to the wire. Whether it be because he's trying to solve his problem or because he's momentarily distracted by something he considers equally as important as preserving his own life. Even in slow moments that aren't actively focused on exploring his character or his situation, the viewer doesn't get a pure chance to breathe because we know what's still at stake. At any given moment, he could keel over and the action will pick right back up. It's such a genius way of keeping you on the edge of your seat. Even without that consideration, there's no truly boring or slow scene. Something's always happening to keep you in the moment, even if that's accomplished by doing something actively stupid or bizarre. The film isn't afraid of non sequiturs, and more importantly, it isn't afraid of denigrating itself for the sake of keeping your attention.
This would have been so tough to do. Like treading water and stuff.
Of course, the pace isn't just kept up by in-universe means. The structural elements of the film all play a very important role, chief among them the editing style. Coming out in God's chosen year of 2006, this film falls neatly into the canon of films with editing that gives you a migraine. Of course, it follows the Saw franchise, which itself began 2 years prior, but I feel an honorable mention must also go to the works of Steve Beck and Baz Luhrmann. A lifetime ago, I brought up the post-MTV era of cinema and television, and Crank takes the baton from those icons and runs with it. It's not just the action scenes that feel like they're going a mile a minute. The moments of dialogue that accompany those scenes, and even ones in calmer moments, are kept at this breakneck pace with some of the silliest and most creative editing decisions I've ever seen. In fact, I wouldn't say it just takes the baton. I would go so far as to say that Crank embodies a stylistic identity we would later see adopted by a certain subgenre of internet videos.
What the hell? What the I hate my TV.
I'm a YouTube poop now!
And no, this isn't just me embodying an insufferable Kojima fanboy that shows you one nonsense scene from a Metal Gear game and says it's just like YTP. I'm saying that this film makes regular and repeated use of bona fide YouTube poop editing techniques, like stutter loops, ominous stares, and other visual and audio edits that primarily contribute to the comedy, as opposed to the atmosphere building or narrative. Watching many of these scenes feels like watching a YouTube video from a few years after the film came out, and considering YouTube was a thing in 2006, I wonder if either it or Crank had some kind of influence on the other. There's a lot more I could say about the editing, but I'd like to take a quick second to praise the other structural elements of the film, mainly the directing and cinematography. Coming from the genius minds of Mark Neveldine and Brian Taylor, it only makes sense. These two have one of the most iconic runs in cinematic history, following up the Crank duology with directing and writing 2009's Gamer, and much more importantly, directing Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance. If you've seen that movie, you'll immediately understand what I mean when I say that Crank was the birth of one of the most identifiable directing styles of the action genre. I know that sounds hyperbolic, and reading it back I'm not even sure if I 100% believe it, but I would much rather it be true than false. This movie has a magical ability to make it feel like the camera is a little cherub following Chelios around in a desperate attempt to keep up with his madness, at moments literally turning to Google Maps to figure out where he is or where he's going. And I'd like to again remind, this movie came out in 2006. This is before drones were even a factor in Hollywood films, much less action B-movies that couldn't hope to afford them. Every moment of Chelios traveling somewhere at high speed is a testament to the insane work that had to go into constructing, but more importantly, capturing these scenes. The stunt and camera work is almost equally impressive, and they certainly both get insane props from me for whatever that's worth.
Get the
Controller, charger, yeah.
He's literally holding the camera up.
Oh, that was a really good handoff!
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Oh, as for where those visionaries are today, they've mostly split into different creative ventures. Their last collaboration seems to be on Ghost Rider 2. Neveldine's currently writing and directing a project called The Olympians, which seems to be some martial arts action film, with his last major contributions to the cinematic world being the Vatican Tapes in 2015 and some pretty generic-looking action film called Panama in 2022. Taylor, on the other hand, has a much more interesting catalog. Apparently, he had a minor role in 2008's The Midnight Meat Train, directed by the guy who did the fucking Twin Snakes cutscenes, wrote and directed a recent Hellboy movie, and collaborated with Neveldine to write the screenplay for Jonah Hex. Most importantly, though, he wrote and directed the 2017 smash hit Mom and Dad. You might not recognize that name, but you might recognize this. That film may be what it is, but I am sad to say that it's the last major example of this directing style that I can remember. Feel free to suggest any similar directors in the comments. Lord knows I'd be happy to check their work out. So, with all of that said, I'd like to get to the second main ingredient that makes Crank what it is: Jason Statham in the leading role. When it comes to action actors who get a bad rap, I wouldn't say Statham is the first that comes to mind, but I will say that it's not unreasonable to say that hearing a new movie has him in it gives you a decent idea of what it's going to be. He's not exactly a versatile actor, and he's no stranger to appearing in pretty shitty films. But this film alone gives me a lot of respect for the man. I'm not sure how many other actors would choose to appear in such an odd, provocative film, let alone star in it and thus be subject to the host of degrading and humiliating things Chelios suffers over the course of the story, let alone do so many of their own stunts and allow for so many more close-up shots than you'd expect for a film where the leading man is consistently risking life and limb for the thrill of the moment. Think about it like this. Bruce Willis couldn't do half the shit Statham does here. Steven Seagal is way too stoic to sell the comedy the film is banking on, especially the stuff with Chelios as the butt of the joke. The Rock wouldn't touch this movie with a 10-foot pole. The film's inciting incident is Chelios getting knocked the fuck out. There's plenty of actors who could maybe have done what Statham did in all of those aspects, but I don't think any of them could have hit the perfect balance of comedy and melodrama that he brings to the table. He comes off like he's always taking himself seriously, but never to the extent that he isn't having a good time. When he's mad, I believe it. When he's excited, I believe it. And when he's happy, for as rare as those moments are, I believe it. I don't think anyone else could have done all of those things in this movie specifically. It's a role made for Statham. And given that he would go on to appear in the Name of the King, a dungeon siege tale the very next year, along with this little unknown project called War, it's clear that this movie wasn't something he had to make an exception for. It's just another job that he took because he was available and looking to work. It helps that he's surrounded by good performances and actors on all sides. Amy Smart as Eve brings an energy and sass to the role that absolutely sells me on her being the one person who could possibly see something romantic in Chelios. Dwight fucking Yoakam, of all people, was great as Doc Miles. He brings a lot of deadpan comedy that meshes wonderfully with the constant overstimulation the rest of the film provides. Makes him a good literal grounding point for Chelios to rely on. Efren Ramirez as Kalo isn't in the film for very long, but he's fun when he's there. Mostly I was just surprised to see a metrosexual Pedro from Napoleon Dynamite, but it fits with the energy of this film. My favorite part of the movie, if it's not Statham, is probably Jose Pablo Cantillo as Ricky Verona. He brings such a captivating energy to the role, and the simple fact that he stands out as a harbinger of chaos in this of all films should say enough about the performance he gives. And it's him, of all people, who manages to show some of the most emotional depth on display. Everyone else in the film may not be as noteworthy in the contributions they make to the end product, but whether it be Don Carlito, Don Kim, Chocolate, or any of the nameless grunts Statham shoots his way through, they're all worth mentioning as crucial to the end result. And talking of the name Verona, I get to do the Maxwell Painwell thing now. The third, and possibly most crucial element to what makes Crank work as well as it does, is the story.
Verona?
Huh.
We were talking Romeo and Juliet in the Shakespeare shit earlier. Is this gonna be like a Shakespeare reimagining?
I don't know. What would it even be of?
I don't know.
Yeah, pick your jaw up off the floor. I've been to college and I took at least 2 courses that were just about Shakespeare. So I know what I'm talking about here. The story in this film, when it's not about whatever random bullshit's happening on screen, is one of a veteran assassin coming to terms with the way he's wasted his life up until this point, and trying to tie up the only loose end he has left. He gets repeatedly confronted with imagery that hints at a complicated childhood and convenes with the ghosts of his past and his own self-reflection right before his final stand against the villains. Don Kim rolling up with the triad in the climax feels ripped straight out of Macbeth or Richard III. Chelios literally gives a final monologue to his girlfriend's answering machine. It's not necessarily a direct adaptation of any specific play, but it's absolutely got Shakespeare in its blood. That confrontation in the elevator especially is something I keep finding myself thinking about when I look back on this movie. It gives a similar feeling to Hamlet confronting his father's ghost, or more literally, his paranoia surrounding his father's untimely death and the sudden transition of power to his uncle.
Where did I go wrong?
You fucking just say something.
It's like talking to the wall.
It feels like Prospero contending with the fact that his stay on the island is nothing more than a dream, and that sooner or later he's gonna have to wake up and face reality.
I haven't got time for this.
You got no time, period.
Orlando?
You a persistent motherfucker, Chef Chelios. I'll give you that.
Chelios is knowingly walking into his death by one method or another, and he has to stare himself in the face and understand that on some level he loves it.
I don't get it. Why you just cut me up alive when you had the chance?
Too easy, motherfucker. Look at you. Bipolar, sadomasochistic tendencies.
Adrenaline junkie, addicted to violence.
The editing works in complete tandem with the script to show us that Chelios is unraveling at the seams, but in doing so, he's finally able to see past the veil and come to a greater understanding about himself.
Hell are you, anyway?
知らないのか?
I think I'm starting to figure it out.
It's quite possibly the best fourth wall break I've seen in any movie.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's the fourth and final ingredient that makes Crank so special. This is an incredibly smart movie. At no point is what you're seeing ever too far gone from the realm of sense to only work with your brain turned off. You, of course, can turn it off and still have a good time, because none of the story or character moments last long enough to take away from the raw fun that the film provides. But if you leave your brain on, you'll be able to appreciate a wealth of extra jokes and development that isn't even really hiding. It's just sitting amongst the chaos like an I Spy puzzle. I could cite many things, but the one I want to call attention to is the ending of the car chase bit after the warehouse shootout. Eve is giving head from the passenger seat while Chelios navigates a high-speed shootout. The joke is the hyperbole of the situation, and the camera work, acting, and editing all let the joke play out uninterrupted. Then the main joke of the scene finally arrives, when Chelios doesn't.
What's the matter?
So you can fall asleep like you always do? I don't think so.
Jeez Louise!
If you've been paying attention, this lightly calls back to when Chelios was interrupted while having sex with her in Chinatown, and recontextualizes that scene as a close skirt with death. On that same note, it feels a bit like her getting him back for that incident, which speaks to that attitude I mentioned her having earlier. However, the scene isn't quite done yet. Chelios is, of course, frustrated at being left hard and unsatisfied, so he gets out of the car and pumps the other one full of bullets before mean-mugging Eve and getting right back into his own. The camera hangs for a very long time on the other one, and naturally, we expect it to explode. It's the action movie thing, and it would pair well with Chelios' anger in the moment. But it never does. The scene ends with a fade-out on that car, sitting against the fence, primed and ready to give us that climactic ending to the chase that signifies the ultimate victory for the protagonist in the moment. But it never does. And that's the joke. The film blue balls us too, to put us in Chelios' shoes. It's a vulgar joke and not terribly complex, but it's something you're likely to miss if you're still laughing at the simpler joke of man no get to come and he angry now, or still processing the visual spectacle of the car chase itself. If you can keep up with the movie, you'll be rewarded for it. That's about all I have to say about Crank. It's a movie that never feels like it hasn't earned the right to do whatever insane shit it's doing, and not only does that insane shit remain captivating and fresh for the entire runtime, it facilitates and enhances a story that actually feels like it had some thought put into it. This is something I'll absolutely come back to regularly, and I cannot recommend it enough if you're a fan of action, comedy, or just want to spend an hour and a half feeling good and invested in something relatively light. Mind, it is from 2006, the humor gets incredibly dark at moments, but I don't ever think it steps over the line, necessarily. It gets close, it toes it. There's like one scene where it probably maybe gets over the line a little bit, but Eve gets enough agency in the film as a whole to where I can forgive that scene. It feels really good to finally cross this movie off my list of things to talk about. It probably doesn't deserve having a script with about 6 months of on and off work put into it, but hopefully the end result is all the better for it. Lord knows it's been a while since I've done this. But yeah, here's to the grand return of a month a movie. Can't wait to see where it goes in the future. If you want to leave your thoughts on the film, my analysis, or a suggestion for a future movie in a future month, then take to the comments section. If you want to hop the queue and get your movie to be here sooner, or just want to support me, feel free to visit the Ko-Fi. And speaking of supporting me, a very special thanks to the Insane Gamers, Jespy, Hashbear, and Indolent Lard. You guys make this possible, and y'all can too if you want to head on over to the Patreon and give it a look-see. That's all for me for now. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a good day. Take care of yourself. Guys, holy shit, Maxwell Painwell made a video that's less than 30 minutes long! Woo!